Well, I have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to see.
This is James Mathers at NAB 2019 for the Digital Cinema Society and Studio Daily. I'm here at the Panasonic booth with my old friend Mitch Gross, and we're going to talk about the EVA1, which is the same camera that we're shooting these interviews with. So Mitch, what's new with EVA?
Well, we've been adding functions and expanding the platform just pretty consistently. So we're already at EVA 3.0. We actually even had some in-between fraction numbers in there. I think we've had like 4 or 5 releases of different firmware along the way. EVA 3.0 added 3 major features. I mean, there was a bunch of little things, adding a few different lenses that we supported with other controls and functions, but the big features are we added an H.265 codec that is in addition to the all-eye and long-op codecs that we already had in there, but the H.265 makes it possible to shoot 4K 60 frames a second in 10-bit. So now you can really grade that, shoot in Vlog, and be able to have all the grading possibilities on that image. Next thing we added was really a request that came, we're trying to be responsive to the clients and what people are, the way they're using the camera. And a lot of people are using this camera in sort of various run and gun type production stuff, and they want to be able to switch between all the different capabilities that this camera has, and be able to do it quickly. So a common one might be shooting at 4K 24 frames a second and then needing to do a slow-mo shot and do 2K at 240 frames a second. And they want to do it quickly because they don't want to have to dive into the menu and change the system frequency, and so they just want to have a quick way of doing it. So we came up with something called Quick Switch, where you would create your setup file, and a setup file is a mapping of every single control on the camera. And say, here's the way I like to have it. And you can name it whatever you like, and then create another setup file with all the different settings you might want, and then just give it another name. You have a shortcut on one of your user buttons. You just push that, up comes your list of setup files. You pick the one you want, boom, it switches over. It says, do you really want to do it? Just make sure you didn't hit it by accident. But it takes maybe 10, 12 seconds, swap over the camera, and now you're in a different shooting mode. So if you know what type of work you're doing, what you got coming up for the day, you just maybe program those, or you have your certain favorites, and then you can quickly switch between them and keep going, doing the shooting you want. Especially a lot of run and gun guys using the camera to be able to capture live sports or just whatever events. They don't have the time to sit there and fiddle around through the menu. They don't want to bother with it. They just want to quickly go between the standard things they do all the time. Maybe you'll have an indoor setting and an outdoor setting. Who knows, whatever that might be. And then the third thing we came up with is our EVA Live concept. What we've been finding at Panasonic, we're really big, not just in the production world, but in the broadcast world. And there's been a merging between them, where you have a lot of people, either they want to use the camera on Monday as a broadcast studio style camera, and on Wednesday they want to pick it up off the tripod and run off with it and do production style work. They want that capability. But then there's other people who want that cinematic production style look, but in a broadcast style workflow. So we're like, all right, we had the capability from the beginning using our little Wi-Fi adapter that goes into the USB port. We always had the capability to take that output, that connectivity, and use like an iPad or an Android like a tablet to remotely control the camera and do all the different menu controls and everything, all the different parameters, you can control it. What we expanded that with is in EVA 3.0, we added, and there's 3 or 4 different little Ethernet adapters, just from USB to Ethernet little cable adapters, like $15. Use one of those to then have an Ethernet coming out of the camera, local area network. You can go to the same tablets to control, just hardwire right into them. Now you have a hardwire control. Or you can go to one of the third-party companies we're working with to have a proper paint box control panel, right? A remote control panel that you can do all the parameters of the camera, but you have all the laid-out controls, and it's sort of set up in a broadcast world to match multiple cameras together. So we have 2 companies that we're working with. There's a company called CyanView and another company called Scarhole. And Scarhoy They set it up where you have a paint box control that looks like a traditional paint box, and you can program and map all the controls, 16-point color correction, and get to your white balance, go through anywhere in the menu, have a little joystick for the iris, and then you rotate the knob on the top of it, and that's your black pedestal, things like that. All the image control that you want to match out your cameras. And it's a relatively inexpensive panel. You can line 3 of them up for a 3-camera shoot. You have them each go to each camera. You can match all your cameras perfectly. Works great as a system. SignView took a slightly different approach where you could line up a bunch of them, or you can have one unit and there's a little push button on the bottom to just move from one camera to another. So it's a little more expensive a box, but you can use one to do multiple cameras, and so it all kind of evens out. It's sort of just which approach you prefer to take for whatever system you're doing. And this all sounds like, oh, well, that's not the kind of work I do. But then you start thinking, well, what if I'm shooting a production style job, but one of my cameras is up on a crane and I can't, or it's a car rig kind of thing, and I just can't get to that thing. Well, I have access to all the controls of the camera remotely. I just, have a cable running to it. I can control everything right there. This bridges into our world just as much as we're bridging into their world. And it really makes it so that you can now take a Super 35 camera, has that shallow depth of field look and the dual native ISO and the 14 stops dynamic range, all that sort of stuff that we're used to in the production world, but it's bringing that into the multicam world. So we're seeing this house of worship that people are interested in this in, a lot of like concerts, comedy specials, we're seeing a lot of sort of smaller venues who want to sort of up their game and not be stuck using like small remote cameras, and you really want to have a higher grade of production. You're talking about a $6,500 camera. You build out one of these systems, instead of spending $50,000 on a setup, maybe you're only spending $15,000 or $12,000.
I have 3 cameras for the price of 1.
Exactly, and does it do everything those cameras? No, we make those cameras too, and they're fantastic, and they do lots of great things. I'm never going to say anything negative about them. They're really specific and incredibly high performance for what they're doing, but maybe you don't need all of that, but maybe you want some of the stuff that this offers, and it can do it quite economically. So it's trying to bridge between these worlds and making more options available to the people, to our clientele.
A lot of versatility.
Lots of versatility, and we're not stopping here. We do have other firmware updates planned. In fact, I can't tell you what's in it, but I got a beta software like the thing they were trying out, and they're like, let us know what you think about this thing that we're testing out, and looked quite promising. So when that comes available, you'll be the first to know. But we continue to expand the capabilities of the camera because we really do believe in the platform. And this is the scale of camera, the price point, honestly, where people want to see a camera like this, and it's so lightweight and so small and sort of interchangeable thing. We can put all these accessories on it, or we can pull it all away and keep it really small. You can go 5.7K RAW if you want out, or you can record internally. Lots of different ways you can use this thing. There's underwater rigs that are built for it now. Lots of different companies accessorizing it. So we really want to continue to build upon that platform because people really like what it does. They keep saying, hey, could you do this? Hey, could you do that? And really our response is, let's see what the engineers think. What can we squeeze into it? And we keep adding new functions and features. Sometimes someone comes to me with something, I'm like, what are you, nuts? I don't want that in a camera. That's crazy. That's a terrible thing to do. But other times, people have these really genuinely great ideas, and so we add them. The quick switch is a great example. People say, it would really be nice if we could just move quickly between these. And I'm like, hey, you're right. Let's see a way we can implement it. So we're constantly trying to expand the platform. This is a camera that's going to be around a while because we really do believe in it, and so we're trying to give as much as possible to the system.
It works really well for DCS, so thank you very much.
Happy that you're happy with it, and thank you.